David R. here. Today I'm going to talk to you about this book, Bright Lights, Big City by JAY McINERNey. See that right there? The book was written in 1984, so the World Trade Centers are still standing. This is a unique book because it was written in the second person, you. Throughout the book, he basically refers to himself as you. That's unique because most books are written in the first person or the third person. Like, for instance, he says, "You are not the kind of guy who would be at a place like this." You. The main character is the narrator. He is nameless. He's 24 years old. You never get a name. Only in the movie his name is Jamie, but in the book he has no name. He is addicted to cocaine and the party lifestyle. Does a lot of drugs. Not only cocaine, he does other drugs too. He works at the Department of Factual Verification, a very prestigious magazine. He is a verificationist. He basically checks for factual errors before the pieces go to publication. His boss, Clara, doesn't like him. Probably because he comes to work late all the time. He's hungover. Eventually he gets fired because he messes up the French elections piece. He gets it all wrong. He had claimed to be fluent in French, but he really wasn't. He's preoccupied with a story in the New York Post about the coma baby. This coma baby is symbolic, though. It's symbolic for the character. The character, the narrator, he is in an emotional coma. And this coma baby represents him. It's symbolic of him. The narrator is friends with a guy named Tad Allagash. And Tad is a hedonist, just like the narrator. They do a lot of drugs. They go to a lot of parties. Meet a lot of mostly uninteresting women. The narrator is married to Amanda. And Amanda is a model. They met in Kansas. She lived in a trailer park. She had a really messed up life, and the narrator wanted to take her out of that. Amanda's dream was to live on Central Park, and the narrator fulfilled that dream. He took her to New York. They lived there. Soon after Amanda became a model, she went to Paris and decided not to come back. So the narrator spent most of his time thinking about her throughout the book. Now, his friend Tad has something interesting to say about the marriage thing, which I think is insightful. He says, "I don't see why you felt you had to marry her. Weren't you suspicious when you saw the sign on her forehead, the one that said space for lease, long and short-term leasing?" See, what guys don't often realize is that it's just your turn with a woman. You don't own her. She's not going to be yours forever. Even if you're married, most marriages end in divorce. So it's just your turn, man. And Tad knew this, but the narrator didn't. So the narrator said, "We met in a bar. It was too dark to read." Tad then says, "Not so dark that she couldn't see you were her ticket out of trailer park land. Bright lights, big city. If you really wanted to do the happy couple thing, you shouldn't have let her model. She figured out she could trade on her looks farther than she got with you." See, that's typical hypergamous female behavior. She just traded him in for something better, you know. That's the thing. Love doesn't truly exist. It's just something that's made up. And once the woman finds something better, she moves on to that. You know, there's no soulmates, any of that stuff. So Tad wasn't surprised when the marriage ended. He felt it was inevitable. But I'm not sure that Amanda and the narrator were even married at all. I think he made it up. The reason I say this is because he confronts her twice. And both times, she didn't really seem to know who he was. For instance, he goes to a fashion show where she is walking, down the runway. And he confronts her. He says, when she is directly in front of you, she turns and looks at you. It is a look that could carry either hatred or indifference. It was indifference, really. She turns away and retraces her steps down the runway as if nothing had happened. Whoever she is a professional. Whoever she is, you don't know her. Does that sound like somebody that he knew? He gets thrown out of the fashion show, but she never tries to contact him. I mean, don't you think she would? And the second time he confronts her is at a party. He says, Amanda smiles at you as if you were an acquaintance whose name she is eager to remember. Does she know him? Does she not know him? I don't think she knows him, to be honest. So throughout the book, the author gives the reader the impression that this whole book revolves around Amanda. But in reality, it revolves around his mother who died of cancer. That's why he moved to New York. That's why he became a coke addict and got into the whole party scene. That's why he avoided his brother, Michael. He avoids his calls. And when Michael is waiting at his doorstep, but he runs away. He gets away from him. Eventually, he has to confront Michael. They get into a fight, but that's only because he has to confront him. And I believe the cancer story about his mother is the reason the narrator made up the wife as well. So anyway, at the end of the book, you get the impression that the narrator is going to start over and do things different. He says, you will have to go slowly. You will have to learn everything all over again, which is true. If he wanted to kick the addiction, he has to start over, but he has to get away from Tad. He has to get away from his friends. He has to just leave New York, go back to Kansas, and stay there and not get involved in drugs or alcohol. But this is a unique book. I highly recommend reading it. It's different. That's all I can say. Anyway, talk to you later.